Someone came to Rabbi Yisrael Misalant one time, and he told him, Kvod Harav, can you, this fear of Hashem, this whole thing about being afraid of Hashem, why do you need to be afraid of Hashem? Well, you made a sin. Okay, Hashem forgives, no? Doesn't Hashem say He forgives? Forgives. No? So Rabbi Yisrael Misalant says, look at the sky. You see the sky? He says, yeah. So you see the stars? He goes, yeah. How many stars? He goes, I don't know how many stars. He goes, any one of those stars, how big is it? He says, it's huge. It's enormous. It could be bigger than Earth. Stars, some of the stars are much bigger than Earth. Some of the stars you could put 100 Earths in. He goes, but if you ask a 6-7-year-old kid, how big is the star? Where's the kid going to tell you? It's this big. This is big. Why is the 7-year-old going to tell you it's this big? Because that's the way it looks from here. You look at the star, you look at it, this is the star, how big it is. That's it, that's the star. But you are adult, 30, 40, 50 years old, you know it's not this big, even though it looks that way. He says that's the problem. The only reason why you even have a question about fearing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is because you have no idea how big a sin is. You have no idea how HaKadosh Baruch Hu evaluates a sin in Shamayim. You think like the 7-year-old. It's this big. Because it wasn't such a big deal to make it. So what? So I looked at her once. Wow, what's the big deal, Hashem? There's 8 billion people. You cared that I looked at that one? 8 billion people. I looked at one. I didn't look at the whole 8 billion. Just one I looked at. For 5, 10, 15, 25 minutes. What? 8 billion people, 24 hours a day. I spent 5 minutes looking at the girl that wasn't my wife. No. No, Hashem, what's the big deal? It's just a quarter. No, it's just this big. Rabbi Yisrael Misalant says, no, my friend. You think it's that big. In HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world, when He sees the entire picture of what happens, now He sees not just what you see. He sees what's going to happen as a result. He sees what's going to happen as a result in this world and above. Let's evaluate. Now you looked at the girl. 5 minutes. Not a big deal, right? 2 minutes, 25 seconds, whatever it is. Your neshama records permanently every single thing that you look at. What is it like? Sometimes your mom asks you, honey, do you know where the such and such is? No, I don't really know. I don't know. I don't really know. 3 hours later, you need that tool, you need that thing, and you know exactly where it is. How come? When you were walking around the house, you saw it, but you just didn't pay attention. So when she asked you, you didn't know, you didn't care. But when you needed it, when it meant something to you, your neshama repeated that information to you and told you exactly where that tool is, exactly where what you wanted was. The priority list changed. When a person looks at something inappropriate, the neshama will record it permanently. And what ends up happening is that he's going to think about that when he goes to sleep. He's going to think about that maybe even 25 years later when he's his wife and 6 kids. He's going to think about that image that he saw when he was 18, 19, 20 years old. Now it's a problem. Why? It's going to create a dream. Or perhaps it's going to create a reality. And the Chachamim say in the Shulchan Aruch, different types of commentary, and Rabbi Yosef Karo himself says that if you wake up out of a dream, you had a dream, and you thought about some woman in your dream, and you wake up and your wife is there. Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to touch her. Yeah, but she's my wife. She's your wife, exactly. But you just had a dream about another woman, not allowed to touch your wife. Until when? Until you calm down. Why? So long as the thought of another woman is in your mind, Rabbi Yochanan says in the Gemara, if you touch your wife and it consummates to a baby, it could be considered a mamzer, an illegitimate child in Shamayim. Why? Yeah, but I was with my wife. Yes, but your mind was somewhere else. That's how important the wife, that's how important the mind is. So now an average person is not going to think like this. He's even going to laugh about something like this. What are you, crazy? What are you this? What are you that? So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to tell you, wait a minute, look, you looked at this precious neshama, her father's a nice rabbi, her mother's a nice Rabbanit. They work their whole life to make sure that they give the good education to their kid. And now one day, they're going to find out that you looked at her. When are they going to find out? When they're in Shamayim. And it's going to be embarrassing to them in Shamayim that you looked at their daughter inappropriately. And the point is, Rabotai Kareem, the magnitude of the sin, the magnitude of effect of a simple thing that we take for granted is shown to us in such a big way that we realize that after all, it's not this small. It's not this small. In fact, it's not even this small. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at things, it's very, very different. Where do we learn an example of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at things? In last week's parasha. Anyone that read last week's parasha, the parasha of the Meraglim. And the parasha of the Meraglim, we had 12 spies, 12 people that started off the parasha, and they were called Rashi Israel. They were called the heads of Israel. What does it mean, heads of Israel? The biggest tzaddikim. The biggest multi-millionaires. No. The biggest rabbis in Eretz Israel. In Am Yisrael. Biggest rabbis. Yeshua ben Nun, Caleb ben Yefuneh, and so on and so forth. These 12 went to the land of Israel, which was called Canaan at the time. They saw giants, they got scared to death, they ran back, they couldn't control themselves, they said a bunch of things that were inappropriate about the land of Israel. Even more so, they said something inappropriate about Hashem, where they said, yeah, we understand that Hashem promised a land of milk and honey, but there's giants there. And they're stronger than us. Rashi says, what does it mean they're stronger than us? They were referring stronger than us, meaning these giants, they're so big, they're stronger than Hashem. Which is kfirah, which is heresy. You're thinking that anything in the world is stronger than Hashem? Hashem punished them severely. Now, how did He punish them? I told you this a little bit on Sunday, but even more so, Hashem wants us to get to know Him in this parasha. And He says, 40 yom, yom lashana, tis'u et avonotechem, 40 shana ve'adatem et nuotai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, because you went there, you 12 meraglim, 10 out of the 12 sinned. 2 were tzaddikim, Yeshua ben Nun and Caleb ben Yefuneh, said good things. Hashem says they're going to see the land, they're going to go to Eretz Israel, Mashiach is going to come from one of them, and so on and so forth. Good things. The other 10 that said Lashon Hara about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lashon Hara about the land of Israel, you're going to get punished like the rest of the people that followed you, which unfortunately was the entire generation. How are you going to get punished? He says, like the number of days that you spend in the land, you went, how much you went to the land? 40 days. A day for a year shall you bear your iniquities 40 years, and you shall comprehend straying away from me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you went there for 40 days. You went there for 40 days. You saw what you saw, you came back. The sin itself was really 4 seconds. 4 seconds it took them to say something bad about Eretz Yisrael. But let's call it 40 minutes. They had a 40-minute conversation. Hashem says, even if it was 40 days, we're going to count every day that you went there. For each day, 40-year punishment. Each day, 1 year punishment. Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's time span is very different. We think that a sin, maybe He's going to give us a little small sentence, a little small, no big deal. In Hashem's eyes, it's a big deal. Something that took 10 people, literally a few seconds to do, gave an entire generation a punishment of 40 years. And what does Hashem say at the end? From here, you're going to learn what it means to go against me. Meaning He's not saying, listen, I'm going to punish you and that's it. No. I'm punishing you, but I'm also teaching you. What am I teaching you? You may think that saying something bad doesn't have that much value because from your perspective it's limited. It's limited that you looked at something inappropriate. It's limited that you ate something inappropriate. It's limited how something seems from your perspective. Hashem says, I see the whole picture and I'm going to punish based on the whole picture. So it took you 40 seconds, but the punishment is 40 years. For who? For everybody involved. Who was everybody? The entire generation. So this, Rabotai, if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what would. That's why the Chachamim, when they write it in the Sfarim HaKadoshim, their holy books, that's why they're constantly talking about being afraid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And very rarely do they talk about loving Hashem. Even though they loved Hashem, and I wish that any one of us would simply be the dust they walked on one time in our life. I wish we achieved such a degree. But the reality is, in our generation, you have many, many people thinking that they're even bigger than the tzaddikim. They love Hashem. Why? They did tshuva last week, they started keeping Shabbat, and they started wearing the tzitzit. They're for sure lovers of Hashem. Even though the tzaddikim themselves barely talked about it. What does it mean? Rabbi Chaim says it just means that we have no idea how big the star really is. Our knowledge is like the knowledge of the 7-year-old. The 7-year-old that thinks the star is this big, even though really the star is the sun, which is 90 million times the size of Earth.